everybody, this is Elizabeth from Silvernest Homeschooling, and I'm here to talk to you about the fun decision making of curriculum choosing. And I apologize, or don't apologize, it is cold here where I live, and so in my house, and so this is me keeping warm and toasty, but I still wanted to talk to you. So every year around January, I find something very hilarious. I pick curriculum that goes until June, but somehow in January, I get this itch to try to decide what I'm going to do for the next year. And I actually start researching now. I start evaluating now what it is that has gone well and what it is that I want to change for the next year. And I was laughing because my friends that I talk to that are homeschooling moms are also a lot in the same boat. And the dads that I'm talking to are sick and tired of talking about it. So instead of talking to my husband about it anymore, I'm going to talk to you about it. And not what I'm going to change yet. I will let you guys know that when we get there. I am discussing things, especially with my 6th grader and my 8th grader going into 9th and going into 7th next year. My 10th grader is actually going to be heading off to college for our local Running Start program, and my senior will be graduated. So those are a lot of changes. But I wanted to talk to you to help you figure out some things to think about when you're deciding on curriculum. I know that sometimes the curriculum you're using runs out. That's happened to us. Or it's just not working anymore and you're evaluating what you want to use. So I want to start with a seed thought for you. Not necessarily actual tips and tricks, though I'll have a few of those at the end. What I really want you to think about is your mindset and being prepared to look for the curriculum. And specifically, what is working? I highly recommend with you starting with what is actually working. What is it that you like about the curriculum that's working? Is it the schedule? Is it the time commitment? Is it the way that the lessons are laid out? Is it hands-on? Is it more your prep? Is it less prep? Is it open and go? What about that English program or that math program or that science program that is working? And then take that and use that basis as you're looking at other types of curriculum to see if this other type of curriculum might work for you. Maybe those are the keys and the clues that can help you figure out what it is that would make another successful addition to your homeschooling. And for me, it was pretty obvious that we really enjoyed the Matthew Seed videos, but we also enjoyed a lot of the reading from our 5 in a row curriculum. But as we got older, we decided that for us, 5 in a row ended around 3rd grade and that we needed something else. And so I began to look for something else. And what we ended up landing on was unit studies for many, many years. We've enjoyed Gather Round. We've enjoyed making our own unit studies. We've enjoyed a variety of things, but I kept coming back to that because it just fit well with who we are and what we do. English, on the other hand, I have probably gone through 5 or 6 curriculums for English, and so I know what it's like, and some of my tips and tricks are based on my failures, to get really excited about something and have it not work. So step 1 is for you to look at what is working and figure out why. Now those whys should probably fall under the category that comes next, which is what are your students' learning styles, which I'm sure many of you have heard about in homeschool videos before, but teaching to your children's learning styles, if you're a visual learner or an audio learner or a hands-on kinesthetic learner, and I've got all of those in my house, and every single person does learn by all of the styles. They just tend to lean towards one versus the other. And so for us, unit studies allowed all these different types of learners to learn together. But yes, so having some of my students, as they're gotten older, they just do really, really well with something they do on their own. They really got tired of waiting for me with group subjects. They really just wanted to run off and wake up in the morning and finish their work. And so we began to find things and fine-tune things based on their learning styles. We pulled one home from some classes she was taking because they weren't challenging enough for her. And we picked a curriculum for her, with her, that would give her the amount of work that she was looking for with the amount of reward she was looking for. And for her, she wanted it pretty high up. She also was really, because she loves to read, we picked history that was tons and tons of books. And so you have this ability to go, okay, this child learns really well by reading, so let's give them a bunch of books. I've got another kid that's not her favorite way of learning. She's much better with hands-on, much better with video. And so having her have hands-on projects just makes more sense. She loves to design PowerPoint presentations and posters, and my other kid would rather write an essay. So you learning what they enjoy, what their learning style. The key to that though is it also has to match your teaching style. I think too many times we sacrifice or we become this almost imposter. We think we're going to turn into this other kind of person, this other mom, this other teacher who's able to handle some kinds of curriculum that, yes, they look brilliant for our children, but we hate them. If somebody hates to read aloud and you check out a curriculum that is nothing but read alouds, you're going to be miserable. Even if your kids like it for a while. One of the problems I had, my daughter and I were talking today, she said, you know, Mom, every time you did this one curriculum, you just seemed mad. And I'm like, that made me so sad because I actually love that curriculum and I really thought we were enjoying doing it together. And yes, I do have a temper, so, but she was like, I don't really want to do that curriculum again because you were just mad when we did it. And I'm like, oh, that's such a bummer. But that is important to know. As a teacher, you have to do something that's maintainable. If it is something that is not open and go, and you have to do like 5 hours of research every week in order to be prepared for that subject, and that is not you, then you probably want to pick a different curriculum. If it's, you hate open and go, it's so frustrating the way it's all laid out and wrong in your head of how you want to do it, then open and go might not be for you. So make it work for your kids, make it work for you. Both those styles are important to mesh. And then on top of that, the other thing, I did write some notes because I wanted to stay focused this time. Then I think it's really important to take that moment before you go running for curriculum and revisit what your actual goals are for that new year. What skills, what learning things do you want those kids to master and achieve in that year? And picking curriculum that goes along with that makes sense. Now, if you live in a state that has a lot of requirements for what you need to teach, then you're going to want to include all those requirements. For us, we do have some requirements. They make sense to me, so I'm not super stressed about them, but they are there. But on top of that, or beside that, or it's a very wide range of like, okay, we have to teach math this year, but of course there's different math curriculums. But if you want to sit down at the beginning and think, I want to teach this subject, this subject, this subject, this subject, we always try to teach ourselves some kind of life skills class in like 7th or 8th grade. We like to teach finance in that. And so for us, that's one of the classes that even though it's not really required, we make sure that happens. Also, there are some people that only want 1 year or 2 years of a foreign language. And for us, I really want my kids to have 3 years of a foreign language because of where we live in the state. The schools that they go into, they really do want to see 3 years consecutively of a foreign language. And so there are some goals and some things that you set out and you're like, this is what I want to accomplish. And that setting that compass in advance before you go looking for curriculum is super helpful. The other thing that you want to think through with that is how often do you want to teach that subject? So let's say you want to do a history curriculum and you decided that you're only going to teach history twice a week. Well, which is absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. But if you find a curriculum that requires you to do 5 days a week and all this extra stuff on top of it, and you can't figure out how to squash that down into 2 days, and then you're going to be stressed because every week you're missing all these extra goals that you have. It might be something to keep in mind when you're going to look for something. Maybe you don't need something quite so beefy or something quite so full, especially in elementary school. Even for us middle school, there's just different time commitment is a big factor when you're talking about how long is this curriculum actually going to take me? So it's really easy to get stuck in the FOMO, the fear of missing out, that next great curriculum. But I would say if it worked last year, if there's another level, keep it simple. Don't make new decisions that you don't have to make. If the math worked last year, don't run off for a new math curriculum. Please save your kids and you some stress. If your English worked last year and you're getting the results, you're measuring success in ways that you think is going to serve that child for the rest of their life, then you don't need to necessarily get a whole new curriculum. Let's say they just need some spelling help, right? Then maybe you can just add in some spelling games or add in some spelling tests or something, a list that they study from books you're already going to read that following year. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to tack on a whole new curriculum. Maybe you do, but maybe you don't need to change English. Maybe you just need to add a little spell you see, which we have used, and it's been very helpful for the years that we used it. And then we got to the point where we didn't feel like we needed it as much. And so you have those questions, right? Okay, style, what I want to do, what's my goals, right? So those are the things you want to think through even before you start all the fun research, even before you start deep diving down all the rabbit trails of what we could do, okay? The next thing you're really going to want to consider, this is just to be real, is budget. You have got to pick an amount that you have planned in advance to spend. It is way too easy to blow a lot of money on things that you didn't really end up using and didn't really need. For me, it was falling in love with the Genevieve Foster history books. I went out that year and I knew I needed every single one of them. And we made it through half of one in 3 years. And at the end of that half of it, we all went, we don't actually, I mean, it's fine, but there was some stuff we didn't quite agree with, and then there was some other stuff that was really good, and then it got confusing. And again, back to learning style, it's tells the same history and all these different timelines all at the same time, which sounded really good, but it was super confusing for the kids that need something a lot more linear. Let's just study one subject at a time. And so, man, I have a huge pile of Genevieve Foster books sitting at my house that we've never used. C'est la vie. It happens, right? You get to that point where you're really excited. Now, what would have saved me, here's my tips and tricks. It would have saved me to borrow someone else's Genevieve Foster book. My friend had them and I didn't even ask. I didn't even send out an SOS to my homeschool community. Hey, anybody have this book that I either can borrow or that I can flip through before I make the purchase? I didn't think to try some samples. A lot of these older books actually have PDFs and facsimiles online. Gutenberg Project, if it's old enough, it'll be there. But also Gather Round, Not Grass Curriculum. A lot of these different curriculums have sample pages, things you can download or that you can have your kid go online and try. Oh my goodness, that would have saved me so much if I had just taken the time to print off and download and actually thankfully I did do that for the Not Grass, and it actually ended up working out for us because I decided to use the sample pages first. And even with Gather Round, I've just been looking at some of their curriculum for next year, and I'm like, I'm looking at all the samples, baby. I mean, that's going to help me figure out exactly which units, if any, that we end up using. And so I think those are like gold, save you so much money, time, and energy. All right, so you want to use your samples. You want to use your sit there, figure it out. Don't go spend the money. And the other thing too is get one. Like if there's a whole series of Genevieve Fosters, that would have been fine, but I should have just bought one. And then I could have said, oh, it worked. Let's get another one. But instead my head said, oh, I want everything for the whole year. And I actually didn't even have a plan for them. I ended up buying a whole curriculum that they didn't even fit with. The kids were already reading too much. So that's the final tip I have. Be realistic. Start small. You can always add something, always. But my perfectionist brain is like, yeah, we're going to make the moon this year. We're going to make all these things. We're going to do this and this and this, this and this. And then we get to reality and we're like, well, maybe I should shrink it down a bit. And I think that's fair. I think we need to think, okay, these are the 5 books I really want to make sure we get done this year. If we finish those 5 books, then maybe I can add 5 more, or I want to do 1 book a month in this subject. And then if we get more done, that's great. But instead of that feeling like I'm a failure because I went out and got a lot of things and then we didn't get around to it, I'm looking at you, screen printing kit. That was a lot more complicated than I thought. That is something that does help you save money in the long term. But more than the money, for me, it's the mental stress of feeling wasteful and feeling behind all the time because we didn't get to the things that I had thought we were going to get to. And I think that's really for the kids too. There's a sense of pressure and stress that they have to get to all the things. And if we can cut that out and make learning peaceful, simple, a little less on the plate. The other thing that I do, because I do create some of my kids' curriculum, is I have them, this is the last tip I have, don't be afraid to use what you already have. Don't be afraid to make up a unit study or a whole like curriculum for the year, trust me, yes, I know when it comes to math and English, this is not a good idea. You want something that is precept upon precept, line upon line. You want something like that. But when you're talking about life skills, or when you're talking about something that is more like the kid interest, or something you're interested or you find really important as a family, say your family history, there's nothing wrong with you going through what you already have. Cooking class, go through your cookbooks. Don't have to get a new cookbook. Just use one of the ones you have. Life skills. I went around the house, gathered all the books I had on finances and things like that, put them in a pile. I had slowly gathered them throughout time, but these are specific. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to make this class. And I ended up not spending any money on that class. I literally just used what I already had. So in conclusion, what is working? Order it again. Don't stress. What's their teaching style? Learning style. What's your teaching style? What's your budget? What are your goals for the year? All of those things. Spend some time. And if you're Christian, spend some time praying. Lord, what character do I want to grow in them? Is there a Bible study that would be helpful for them? Is there something that would minister to them? What are the A goals next year? Maybe the A goal next year is math, English, and a lot more time being together, growing in character and playing board games so that they can work on some of those bad attitudes and you can catch them in the act when they throw a fit, when they lose. Or maybe the goal for the year is for them to learn how to communicate to people who are strangers in a proper manner. Maybe your goal for the year is to teach them how to tie their shoes. Maybe those are the kinds of goals. Just make that list. Look at it again. See if you need to buy anything. Remember, you probably don't need as much as you think you do. We're not a public school, so we don't, I buy pencils whenever in a big, huge thing, and we just go through them. The school supply purchasing at the beginning of the year is not exciting at our house. But, keep it simple and buy things on sale when they can. If you do plan it early enough, I hit the sales because I do think it through this time of year, and then I kind of look for the sales throughout the spring, so I don't just go out and buy them right away. I also try to ask my local buy sell trade or my local homeschool swap groups and ask them if they have a curriculum that they're done with. I've tried to sell old curriculum that way too. I'm bad at selling things. I usually just give it away. It's easier. But if you are looking for something specific and you know you have a bunch of time between now and next year, then you can go ahead and start putting out feelers to see. It turns out my friend has a copy of the history we want to use next year, and she's already offered it to me, and so that's awesome. I'm grateful. So there's ways to save money. There's ways to reuse, recycle, reduce, all the things. Obviously, your library can be your friend. You have the power, at least in our system, to go in and request them to buy books for you. Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no, but also the interlibrary loan can be really powerful, especially as some of the books, like I wanted Return of the Indian by Lynn Reed Branks, and we had the other two, but not that one. And they're like, oh, we don't have it in our system anymore, but we can order it from this other system. So look at the resources that you have. What do you actually have that is free? And then go from there. The last thing I want to say about budget that I forgot from earlier, I did research about 10 years ago on what makes a successful homeschool budget, because I was really curious to know if spending lots and lots of money gives you a better homeschool. And the truth was no. There was a magic number that they found. If they spent too much littler than that, it did affect the quality of the curriculum and it did affect the education. But after that amount, it didn't make that much of a difference. It didn't matter how much more money they piled on top of the kids. It really didn't change their homeschooling level of learning in academia. And that number was about $500 per student per year. Now, for some of us, that's too much money for us to naturally think through. But if you go back and you think about all the books you're getting from the library and you add that to the number, or if you think about asking for those passes to the zoo or those things for Christmas and birthday and books that you need, they're readers and stuff that the kids would enjoy, or if there's a special space unit that you're doing and you know that there's a really cool Lego set that's space, then you can maybe put that on their birthday list, that kind of thing. But when you're thinking through, like, for me, I don't skimp on my math. Again, I don't skip on my English. The rest of it is a little more flex because there are some things that you can move around. Now, again, that's more elementary school, even some middle school. By the time you get to high school, it's very expensive. The curriculums just tend to be more expensive. And you're paying for, accreditation, you're paying for quality, but think through the fact that this is probably thicker books, heavier books. So, try to get them used if you can. And maybe co-op. Maybe you can meet together with another mom and you'll need one teacher manual, or plan it in advance. And then if you make mistakes and buy the Genevieve Foster books, it's okay. Just forgive yourself and find someone else to give them to, or sell them back again online, depending on how well you like to do all those kinds of things. My sister always bought and sold her curriculum, and that's how she paid for the next set of curriculum. And that saved me a lot of money, because I'd just be like, Rosanna, can I borrow all these books that you got for this other curriculum? And that's how we got through. A lot of our history was actually just borrowed from my sister. So yeah, keep your communication flowing with people around you. I hope this helps. Curriculum hunting can be fun, and I have been known to spend more time looking for curriculum than I have teaching in certain seasons. So whoops, that's my final mistake. Make sure you're still in the game with what you have decided to do now. Don't just fall in love with the things of the future. Enjoy your life you have now. And I think you're doing a great job. If you're learning and the kids are learning, then keep it up. You're making progress. And I hope these helped you. And I hope you have a really good time picking your curriculum, and that everything you buy is useful and helpful for your next year. And we will talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.